My name is Serghei Rodin, and I'm a cloud ninja. Though my colleagues call me DevOps, I build Linux servers, Kubernetes clusters, pipelines, infrastructures for about 18 years. And this is me on KubeCon, holding Kubernetes Shield. And there is a tile of companies I've been providing my professional services with, and also a bunch of GitHub badges I'm really proud of. Today, I would like to talk about infrastructure naming conventions. Phil Carton once said that there are only two hard things in computer science: naming things and caching validation. This presentation is about the second hardest thing. Oh, I didn't click the slide. All right, so I will start with bad examples. Then I will show you some good ones and share my own views and give you a couple of suggestions so you can create your own convention. So the worst case scenario, when you don't have naming convention at all, and this is bad because, well, the lack of naming convention creates a lot of friction during product launch, product development, and operations. Or when you have a naming convention, but it's so confusing. Like, have you ever tried to buy a USB Type-C device and wondering its capabilities, like charging speed, data transfer speed, or alternate mode specifications? You never know. It's really, like, the whole USB standard in general is confusing. Or when you have a naming convention, but it is so confusing, just like with PHP language. When you have string position function that does not have underscore in the name, and you have string replace function that has underscore in the name. And then if you look at parameters, at arguments, like the first argument for string position is string. It's the first argument. And for string replace, it comes as a third one. There is no easy way to remember it, just because it is inconsistent. A good indication, like a sign that you don't have good naming convention when it is so complex and you get questions like, what is the endpoint for QA environment? It is so complex, nobody really knows. Or if you receive an alert message saying that one of your servers is down, and you're like asking yourself, should you be worried? Should you care about this over like the weekend? As a good example, I really like what BMW did 15 years ago in 1972. What you see on the screen is a small little car called Isetta, BMW Isetta. It was produced in with a bunch of different engines. First version was Isetta 250, and it had 200 milliliters engine. Then we have Isetta 300 with 300 milliliters engine. And then there was Isetta Moto Coupe Deluxe Edition with a sliding windows. And finally, we have Isetta 600, and you are wrong. It did not have 600 milliliters engine. It had 300 milliliter engine, but it was an enlarged version of the car. Therefore, like 600. They quickly, like clearly, this naming convention didn't work for them, and they created a new one. And I like it, and this is why it is a good example. Here's how it works. It has 3 sections. On the first section, we have a number that indicates model series. The bigger the number, okay, I didn't, okay, this slide. So this convention consists of 3 sections. On the first section, we see a number that represents model series. The bigger the number, the bigger the car is. So 5 is bigger than 3, and 7 bigger than 5. Also, if it's an odd number, it represents sports-oriented car, like performance car. So 2, 4, and 6 are sports version of it. Then we have 2-digit block that shows us engine displacement or engine volume in deciliters divided by 10. So 20 means 2.0 liter engine. Finally, we have a letter in the end that represents engine type. I stands for fuel-injected engines, while D stands for diesel engines. That's easy to understand. The reason why I like it, because it is so concise, it is simple, it is easy to use, not just within BMW factory or Germany. It is easy to use all across the world. Here's the car that was released just 2 years ago. And as you can see, we have a 7 as a number, which means it's a huge luxury sedan. Then we have, well, something different. It's E, and as you can guess, E stands for electric. So this car was produced just 2 years ago, and we see how naming convention created 15 years ago was able to stood the test of time, how it scales. And of course, we don't pour like liquids in the engine, so 45 means kilowatts in power. But have a look at the next slide. This car was released this year, and I'm sure you know how it works by now. So 4 is sports version of the car, and you can understand the size, you can understand how practical it is, how fast the car is just by looking at the number, because it's so packed with meta information. Did I say meta? Oh yeah, I did. And by meta, I meant an attribute or characteristic that provides you, that gives you high-level information, something beyond the basic reading. It's not just number. You know who else uses meta? It's AWS. I'm not going to read you the whole thing. I just want you to have a look at the second part that comes after the dot. As you can see, it's medium, and it's actually a t-shirt naming convention. We all know how t-shirts size, like how it works. We have medium, we have large, we have extra large. It's simple, and it's not confusing like with the, I don't know, Pro, Ultra, Titanium, Silver. It's easy to understand. And of course, AWS injected this meta information intentionally. They know how it works. But the funny thing about meta is when you realize that you have meta, something meta in your naming convention after a while. That's what happened with World Meteorological Organization. Initially, they named it hurricanes and tropical storms after a year. And it was confusing when you have two storms or 2 hurricanes in the same year. It was like just overlap. So they decided to give names. And the funny thing is that it turns out that people are more fearful and are more likely to evacuate if you see a hurricane named after a male. So Victor is more scarier than Victoria, for example. Of course, now they consider names carefully, and they know how to assign properly because of these characteristics. The next thing I would like to show you is not a naming convention, but rather an approach to it. When British Cycling Federation employed Dave Braceford, the situation with British cycling was desperate. For 100 years, no victories, no huge results whatsoever. So they hired this guy and asked him, what you are going to do? How you are going to change this? And he said, well, I have this theory about marginal gains. So if you take everything that goes into riding a bike and improve it just by 1% and put it all together, you get a significant result. And he promised to prove his idea, his theory, in 5 years. It turns out he was wrong. The fate of British cycling changed just in 2 years. His riders won the Olympic gold, 6 Tour de France races, which is a prime event in cycling. And the way he did it, of course, it was obvious things: improving a bike, tires, saddles, forks, and so on. Training progress, of course, but his vision was way wider than you might think. He was wondering, he was worried how his riders wash their hands, so they get sick a little bit less. He was worried how his riders are resting after a race, so he bought a custom bus with first-class seats, so they get a little bit better rest after a race. He brought custom pillows and mattresses in hotels so his riders get a little bit better sleep. He even color-coded water bottles. So the bottle that has energy drink in it has a blue top, while the pure water has white top. And you instantly know what you're drinking. Just 1% of improvement gives you less friction and better understanding. That's what I suggest you to do, and this is how you can do it. So if you want to find those marginal gains in your naming convention, and you consider uppercase text versus lowercase, please know that lowercase is actually faster to read. It's all because of the shape. If you see the silhouette of uppercase word has, it's a flat rectangle, while for lowercase, it has a variety. There is top on the H that goes higher, there is a tail in P that goes lower, and somehow our brains reads lowercase faster, and it was proven in multiple studies that show that at least 13% faster, you can read lower text at least 13% faster. Also, if you consider word separator or word delimiter, and you are choosing between underscore or hyphen, minus, dash, whatever you call it, please note that it takes 2 hands to type underscore, while it takes just 1 hand to type hyphen. So it's faster, 1%. And I had a long debate with my colleagues over this, because one guy told me that, okay, but what if you double-click on the word that has a hyphen in it? It is not selected all the way, while with underscore, it's selected instantly. And if you are doing copy and paste, it's just faster. Come on, it's not a problem. The truth is that it's configurable. In your console, in your editor, whatever you want it, you can configure it. All right, so this is about putting environment name in the instance name. Naturally, a lot of people put environment name in front of the instance name because it's logical. It's just like English. It works as an adjective. It's a developer instance, therefore it's a developer node, so it's a dev node. And also, if you have multiple instances, it gets, the list is alphabetically sorted by default, so visually it's easier to see the relation of the environment. But I highly suggest you against this. And the reason is, come on, we have filters. You can use grep inside the terminal. It's not a problem. And the second is because DNS. Do you know what DNS means? Yeah, it's domain name system. And the key thing here, it's a system, it's not a convention. Let's talk about naming systems. Let's talk about Manhattan. So in 19th century, New York overgrew Philadelphia, which was the greatest and the largest city in the United States at the time. In order to ensure further growth, Commission created the plan. So they mapped a rectangular grid over the island. And the naming system for streets is just pure genius. I like it so much. Here's how it works. So streets that divide city vertically are called avenues. These are broad streets. And the numbering, the names are assigned in numerical order, from right to left, from east to west. There is a first avenue, then there is a second avenue, and then there is a third avenue. I see that you understand how simple it is. With streets that divide city horizontally, it's exactly the same idea. It goes from bottom to the top. And because horizontal streets are not as wide, they're one directional. So if it's even number, it shows one direction. If it's odd number, another direction. I like it. And the thing I like about this system is really Dakota building that was built in 1886 in the middle of nowhere. Actually, I didn't. Yeah, sorry. So this slide, I want to show you how intersections work. It works sort of like a chessboard. You can map visually inside your head where this intersection is, and just so you know, this is where it is. So it's really simple. You get used to it. You can never lost in New York City if you take time and understand how the system works. But the thing that I like about their plan is really how the Dakota building was built in 1886 in the middle of nowhere. Literally, you can have a look. And then this building in 2023 is beautifully surrounded by other buildings. And this is all because they had this naming system that allowed them to preemptively pre-allocate addresses. And you can do the same with your naming convention if you use DNS. So let's talk about DNS system. Domain name system. If you put your company name, company domain on the first layer, then you add your environment on it, or if you have a single tenant product, you can use the customer name on the second level as a subdomain. Then you put your project on the third level, and then services on the fourth. You can have this beautiful endpoint that has a lot of meta inside. And this is how it works. If you get an error message about this particular instance, you can draw your assumptions, and you can assume how important and how critical it is. You can just throw this link to your tech guy and say, this is what I have, and he knows what to do and how important it is. Yeah, because we have this service project environment domain template. And this is really good for templating. It works nicely everywhere you want. You just concatenate things. And not just templates. You can use this naming convention everywhere. You can name your Elasticsearch indices this way. You can name your databases this way. And you can read, you can understand how it works. Do you remember the scene in the Matrix movie when Cypher was looking at the screens and there was Neo? And Cypher goes like, I don't even see the code. All I see is a blonde, a brunette, and a redhead. That's what you can do with a good naming convention. You can see through it. You can see things beyond it, behind it. Another good thing about DNS is that it's an hierarchical system. And this is, we know how file system works. This is really easy concept for users to grasp the understanding. They know how to work with domains, with subdomains. It's also a good security measure. You can treat your domains as subdomains differently. You can get SSL certificates differently. You can even delegate project zones to different teams and allow them to manage their systems. This naming convention can shape your infrastructure like nothing else if you consider using environment name placement in the end of your instance name. So, to recap, inject meta inside your naming convention. Fight for marginal gains, because even 1% of a gain can give you a significant improvement. And build systems, not naming conventions, because convention is just an agreement while system shapes everything around you. All right, guys, thank you very much. That's it. Do we?
Guys, if you have any questions, please raise your hands. Yeah.
Okay, 2 hands. Cool.
I have one question about naming systems and unique identifiers. Should the unique identifiers be part of a naming system or should not?
All right, this is a good question. So should unique identifiers be part of? My take on this is that if it gives you meta information, if you can work with it, if you can justify existence, then yes. Honestly, in most case scenarios, I would go with no, because as humans, we work with information, while for programs and for programs, it might be useful. But for us, as a human being, it's not that meaningful. So I would suggest to not use them. However, it's still important for for unique lists. Yes. So you see, if in your case you have an overlap and there is no way to avoid it, of course you should include unique identifier as a part of the name. And in that case, you can do what we do with the Git commits. We don't show the whole thing. We just cut, yes, and the last 6 numbers are what we are using to address the commit. Yeah, so make it shorter, make it concise, my advice. Thank you.
Hello, thank you for such great presentation. How we can deal with this enterprise level naming, like my custom int 64 for exact this project and so on. So maybe you worked into enterprise projects and you know what I'm talking about when you have a 42-inch widescreen and the name is not entering in that screen. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a tricky question. Of course, there are some edge cases when the name is so big it's not really useful. And I'm sure you're a smart guy. You can find your ways around it. So there are always like things and corners that you can cut. But generally speaking, the idea of domain name system is that you can delegate, that you can split your domain and your infrastructure into zones that are separate. And if you allow them to move separately, that's what you're after. That's what you should do. Like I said, with the enterprise, you should assign teams with their zones and let them manage their zones how they want. And you should apply some general rules on how they should work with domain and names generally in your company. Thank you.
I have one more question, sir. No applause. No, sorry.
Hey.
He does not deserve this yet.
Thank you.
The
Thank
last
you,
question,
Serghei.
yeah.
It was a great presentation. I have a question. What if the customer doesn't like this multi-layers of subdomains? Are there any tricks on how to optimize these multiple layers of subdomains? What do you use?
Okay, thank you. I'm thinking about, should I repeat the question? But since you had a mic, it's all right. Okay, the question, what are the tricks? Because this system is like I said, you can template it. It means there is a structure. And you can always show only important parts. You can start from left to right. You can show only 2 subdomains and to not show the whole thing. That's what we have actually on host names. When you name a Linux server and assign it a name, there is a fully qualified name that shows us the whole thing, or just the first part of it, like first subdomain. You can apply the same technique for you if it serves the purpose. And the purpose is to identify and navigate in your infrastructure.
Thank you, Serghei.
Thank you.
Thank you for your awesome presentation.